employ the best people, but give them the space for them to deliver and don't interfere. And then just provide guardrails around that.
What are some other qualities essential for leadership?
If you take leadership, managing director, CEO, for me, the crucial role for that job is in the title, managing director or chief. It's a leadership role. You're not looking for the technical expert. You take that for granted. But you're choosing the person who's the best leader, team leader. You have to have your radar as a non-exec tuned in so that you can sense when things are going off track. But you don't go in and fix things. You point out that things are off track. It's management's job, the executive's job, to get things on track.
If you were to write your own book, what would be the subject matter of it?
David, I know my limitations.
What are you most optimistic about?
I'm optimistic about the future of the human race. We've always been problem solvers.
IVN Gecko acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and future.
Our guest today is Ian Murray, a seasoned mining executive with more than 25 years' experience across leadership and board roles. From his early career as CFO and later CEO of DRDGOLD in South Africa, to leading Gold Road Resources as Executive Chairman and Managing Director here in Australia, Ian has built a reputation for strategic vision and growth. He now serves on the boards of BlackRock Mining and Arafura Rare Earths and is the Non-Executive Chairman of Jupiter Mines. We hope you enjoy.
Ian Murray, welcome to Hearts and Minds.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Lovely to see you, and have another South African accent on the program.
Oh, really? You have more of us?
Well, let me think. We've had Jake Klein on the show.
Yeah.
Who else? Clayton Timms.
Yes.
And I was going to say Ron Mitchell, but I better not because he was born in Zimbabwe. So it's probably safer to say he was Southern African rather than South African.
And there are a few at Gina Hancock's organisation as well.
There are indeed. That's right.
It's mining.
Yeah. Look, we tried hard to get some of Gina or Mrs. Reinhardt, as they call her, on the show, but without any success. But there you go. Talking of South African accents, I bumped into your board colleague from Arafura, Mike Spreadborough, the other day, and I said, look, we've got Ian Murray coming on the show, and he said, well, you better get an English translator in because your listeners won't be able to understand what he's on about.
Yeah, that's very funny coming from the Queenslander because on the boards that I am on with him, the Australians need an interpreter to understand what the Queenslander's trying to say.
Good on you. Stick that up, you spready. Look, it's thanks very much for coming on the show, Ian. I'm glad you did because you've got so much experience, international experience in mining and in corporate finance. So we're really keen to get some insights from you along our themes of leadership effectiveness and engagement and culture development. I read an article recently about you. It was in the 2025 mining yearbook, I think, and the journalist described you as one of South Africa's least heralded and quietest achievers, or one of the best exports from South Africa. Are you really quiet and are you really unheralded?
Yeah, I think compared to other South Africans who are very bolshy and are in your face, which is the typical South African trait, I am a lot more low key. I just get down and get on with the job, work with the team, and we deliver. There's no need to make a big song and dance about your achievements. Let your achievements and let the company speak for itself.
You are a public figure, though, of in public listed companies. It must be hard sometimes to try and stay below the radar, given the responsibilities you've got of keeping the market informed and so on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just put my head up slightly and you invite me on the show. So yes, it is very difficult to keep the low profile. Yeah. But as a non-exec, it's a lot easier than as an executive.
Yeah.
Because as an executive, your job is to be in front of the public, in front of the media. As a non-exec, you're just urging the executives to get out there and do their thing.
The article I read also had a photo of you threshing the waves on your windsurfer. Is that a regular thing that you do?
I used to windsurf a hell of a lot when I was in South Africa in my youth, so much so that I missed quite a lot of university to windsurf. Yeah. And despite that, I still managed to graduate. Yeah. And then when you start working, that all stopped. You move up to Johannesburg in South Africa. I was born at the coast. You move up to Johannesburg, far off of any ocean, there's no wind, and it all stopped. When I moved to Perth, I've restarted it, and now that I've retired from executive life, I've taken it up again, it's a great break from the office space.
And I guess we've got some of the world's best calm waters to do it on, or even strong-winded waters, haven't we?
Yeah, no, summer here is wonderful for windsurfing. You've got the sea breeze, which kicks in almost every day. You've got either the safety of sailing on the river, or you can go out in the ocean, and there are plenty of spots on the ocean up and down the coast.
Yeah. When did you arrive in Australia from South Africa?
Yeah, I moved in about 2005.
Okay.
So I've been here just over 20 years now.
Yeah, fabulous. Tell us a bit about your earlier years in South Africa. Where did you live specifically? What was it like, and what were your early interests?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in a town that hardly anybody's heard of, called East London. People say, oh, is that in the UK? No, East London is a town in South Africa. In a way similar to Perth. It's on the coast. A small population. The main industry there is Mercedes-Benz factory. It's, I think, one of the only factories in the southern hemisphere. Without that, there would be no economy. But a very relaxed lifestyle, being brought up in a small town. I have to admit, brought up with white privilege. As a white child in the 1960s and 70s, we were protected, but we didn't realize that until later into the 80s. And for example, the first time I became aware of Nelson Mandela was at university. I'd never come across that name at school because, again, you're protected, you're sheltered, you get educated on what the system wants you to be educated on. So, very relaxed upbringing at the coast, in the water. Yeah.
That surprises me. So you were in your late teens then, until you heard about Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Wow.
First year of university, where we saw his name painted on walls and things and posters. There was that iconic picture that everybody put up of him. At that stage, it was the only picture that was doing the rounds. Like, who is this person? So we were very, very sheltered as kids being educated in South Africa.
So to what extent then did apartheid impact on you and affect your life?
Yeah, interesting question, David, because I remember when I was 10 years old, we went to school. Remember, government school, government teachers appointed by the government. And we arrived at school that day, 1977, and the headmaster's holding up the newspaper of the day. And the headlines is, Steve Biko dies in detention. So I'm sure you've never heard of who Steve Biko is, but he was leader of the Black Consciousness movement, whereas Nelson Mandela led the African National Congress. So two different parties, both with similar philosophies, and Steve Biko got arrested and got killed by the police in detention. And this headmaster said to us, remember this day, your life is going to change forever because of this. And that headmaster sticking his neck out to tell us that at school was remarkable. And I roll the clock forward to the end of my schooling, 1984. I remember sitting with a bunch of kids on the school field and just talking about South Africa. And I said, we'll have a black South African president one day. And the rest of the crowd all said, no ways, that will never happen. That was the view back then. 6 years later, Mandela was released. 10 years later, the ANC won the election. But in 1984, the consensus view with school kids was, we're going to have an apartheid government forever.
It's interesting. I've only been to South Africa on one occasion. It was 1971. So as an 8-year-old on the boat from the UK to Fremantle, we stopped off at Cape Town, and I still remember the flat top mountain and my first taste of a pineapple. And I remember getting on a bus and saying to my dad, why are all the dark-skinned people at the back of the bus and the white people in the front? It seemed a bit odd. And he explained the concept of apartheid to me then.
That's an interesting story. It was my older brother. He tells us a story that when he was a kid, him and his friends jumped on the bus and wanted to sit at the back. And they were so angry that they weren't allowed to sit on the back row of the bus.
As school kids tend to do.
Well, yeah, school kids you want to sit at the back of the bus and be the man, and they weren't allowed to sit in that area. So he was very put out, and then he learned, again, sheltered upbringing. You then learn why it's there. And
What were your interests when you were at high school? Did you have any favourite topics? Were you a keen sports person?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned earlier about windsurfing, I windsurfed at school. It was in the 80s when windsurfing was a school sport, believe it or not. and we would go every weekend and compete against other schools in sailing competitions. So that was great. As a South African, you played rugby. There was no other winter sport that you could choose. You played rugby or you did nothing. And then, academics. I always enjoyed mathematics and problem solving. So,
as a teenager, was there an event in your life or a point in time when you thought, okay, this is my purpose. This is what I'm going to build a career?
No, I think those two examples I gave earlier of the Steve Biko incident, and then the discussion with my friends about the future of South Africa, and then I think roll that forward, and then when we were pre-development of Gruyere at Gold Road, I had to spend a few days on country with the community leaders, and they certainly opened my eyes of the importance of country and the country and the land to them. They drove me around and pointed out important areas. So, for example, they've got this massive granite rock, and it's got this slide down the middle where every time there's a big rainfall, the water runs down this furrow, and it's created a natural slide. And so when it rains, the kids will go out there and use it as a slide. They then also showed me these areas where, with the stolen generation, where when the families heard that the police were coming out, they would all rush to their hiding places. And they showed me where their families used to hide them to stop them being taken by the police. So when you put all that together, as a non-exec now, I see my purpose as mining is very important. It can change the communities for the better if done right. Most new projects are built in areas where there is no other industry or development, and therefore mining can change those communities and the future generations of those communities for the better. And so as a non-exec, I will only want to be involved in projects where we will make a positive contribution to those communities, because they're the people that live there. Once mining is done, we've done the rehab and we go, those communities still live there, and we need to leave them with a positive outcome from us mining those areas.
Obtaining that social license is so important, increasingly important.
Yeah.
We didn't hear of it that much 20 or 30 years ago in the mining industry, did we?
I don't think the mining industry needed it back then. Now you definitely need it.
You weren't always in the mining industry. You started off, I think, in the financial services industry. Where was the pivot? Why did you move into mining? Was it simply the geography of being in a strong mining state?
No, not at all. So as you mentioned, I went to university, initially I studied actuarial science, and then I converted that into chartered accounting, did my articles, became a chartered accountant. And then I was looking for what to do next. Early 30s, what do I do now? I put my CV out and I got 2 job offers. This is in Johannesburg. One was in the insurance industry, retirement savings / insurance industry, which is pretty big in South Africa as well as all around the world. And the other offer was in mining with the Rand Gold mining house to go into gold mining. And someone I spoke to said, go into mining, it's full of individuals, full of characters, and you'll always be inspired. 30 years later,
you're one of them.
Absolutely, I'm inspired, and you keep meeting people that want to make a difference, that are the leadership and everything in the mining space. It's there.
Yeah. No, that's for sure, and that's in main part what attracts me to the mining industry as well. It's the personalities and the raconteurs, especially people with a geological background. I find, you think of the personal qualities attached to being an explorationist. It's all about hope and confidence and optimism and resilience. Wonderful traits. Will you share something with us that not many people know? We all now know that you're a windsurfer, but is there something else that is not public knowledge that you're happy to share?
David, I'm a closed book. I'm under the parapet, not much about me, but the one thing I will share is I split my time between Europe and Australia now, and my aim is to have permanent summer. So I'm in Australia from August, September until about April, May.
That explains the tan.
And then I moved to Europe for the next 4 to 5 months.
You spent a lot of time in Germany.
Yeah.
Why is that?
My partner, she's German. Her adult kids are over there living and working. She's got her house there. So together we moved between the two, which works well, except sometimes as a director you got to travel to meetings or to other countries, which is fine. Yeah.
And whereabouts in Germany do you stay when you're there?
It's just outside Frankfurt, so just
Okay.
on the edge of a beautiful big forest. So you're in the country.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Let's talk a bit about leadership effectiveness. You've been obviously a leader at both the executive level and now at the governance level or the board level. What personal qualities and behaviours do you think define effective leadership?
I think it's Ted Roosevelt quote, which is, employ the best people, but give them the space for them to deliver and don't interfere. I think that's one of the keys for me with leadership, is you need to employ very good people, but because you're employing good people, give them the space and the autonomy to do what they do best, and then just provide guardrails around that. So you can see if things are going off track, then you can step in as a leader and help redirect that person. I think the other thing is the difference between delegation and abdication. Often you see people think they're delegating, but they're actually abdicating. They just, this is for you to do, sink or swim. And that doesn't work. Delegation is where you pass on work for someone to do, but you provide them with the support that they need for them to be successful in doing that task and then taking over in those roles.
So I think you've alluded to there the importance of empowerment, allowing people to demonstrate their talents, but also the philosophy that many board directors have of sticking your nose in but keeping your hands out.
The Tony Kiernan quote.
Indeed it was. He did say that. And
it's so true. I always talk about it. You have to have your radar as a non-exec tuned in, so that you can sense when things are going off track, but you don't go in and fix things. You point out that things are off track, give suggestions or advice how to get them back on track. It's management's job, the executive's job, to get things on track. If they can't, well, then you make changes.
As a recruiter of senior executives and occasionally board people, Ian, it's occurred to me over the years that one of the competitive edge qualities of leadership is being able to remain calm and make decisions in the context of ambiguity and uncertainty. In other words, you don't have all the information you'd like to have, but there is a need to keep on going and to progress. And I think people that are able to some extent, see around corners and connect the dots, even though some of the dots are unseen at the time, is such an important quality to have. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, but it's a difficult quality to hone, because as executives, when we're in lower line management roles and we're developing, detail is everything. And then as you get higher, you have to go in the gut feel. You get as much as you can from the people providing detail. There's never sufficient information, and then you've got to make a call. But it takes training and practice, because we were trained, me as a chartered accountant, you were trained to be 100% perfect in everything you do.
Yes.
Then as you move into leadership, it's less of that.
Yeah. And I think what enables you to become more effective at that strategic level of making decisions where there is less than perfect information is maturity. The fact that you're a seasoned professional or executive or director, and you've been through calamities and disasters, and you know that you'll live through them. It's just a matter of settling, staying calm, and doing the best you can under the circumstances.
Yeah. Another way of saying that is, we've all read that chapter before or seen that movie before. It's just being replayed in a different scenario.
Yeah.
And that's true. The more experience you have, you've got this experience to tap into and call on to give you that guidance when you have these ambiguous or uncertain situations.
What are some other qualities essential for leadership?
Well, I think if you take leadership, managing director, CEO, for me, the crucial role for that job is in the title, managing director or chief executive. It's a leadership role. So for me, when looking for those sorts of individuals, you're not looking for the technical expert. You take that for granted. These people, for example, in mining, someone who comes from a mining background, be it geological mining, financial, or any of the other skill sets, but you're choosing the person who's the best leader, team leader. That person has to build the team. It's a team builder, growth deliverer, etc. And that comes from their leadership skills. How are they in building up teams, managing teams, mentoring people, Not all teams are full of well-experienced people. You always promote people into a new position and they're inexperienced, so the team leader needs to nurture those people and guide them into their roles as well. Together with that is then the maturity to deal with investors and other stakeholders, which is crucial.
To build a team and to coach people, do you need to be extroverted or charismatic?
Oh, no, not at all. No. Building a team and working with people is normally a one-on-one activity, and you don't have to be an extrovert to be good on one-on-one. A lot of significant business leaders are introverts, and they've been successful despite being introverts. They look at things differently. They think a hell of a lot before they talk, and when they do talk, they're gems that come out. So definitely, I don't think you've got to be an extrovert in order to be a successful team leader.
That's my experience as well. We both know plenty of extroverted chairmen of boards and CEOs, but at the same time, there's plenty that are quite understated and mild-mannered, and they've built and established credibility, and they've learned the art of building trust-based relationships with people. So it's about credibility and reliability, being able to establish some level of intimacy with the people that you're working with, and putting their interests ahead of your own personal interests. And I think if you can do all of those things, it augurs well for a trusting relationship with people.
Yeah, agreed.
Listening's another quality, isn't it, that is so important and perhaps undervalued.
Listening and sensing.
Yes.
Well, sometimes it's the unspoken body language and mannerisms and behaviours that you need to pick up on.
Yeah, reading the room, reading the body language, being sensitive to that. Yeah. And, we talk a lot about the introduction of AI and robotic technology, but that's one thing that humans, are so good at, is being able to sense the mood and the room.
Correct.
And now we take a short break to acknowledge our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Halo Civil Engineering. Halo is a multidiscipline civil contractor that specialises in the delivery of complex civil projects across defence, infrastructure, energy and resources. A West Australian company committed to delivering dynamic solutions with a focus on zero harm, while having a positive impact on their industry, clients and the people they serve. For more information, search for Halo Civil Engineering on socials or visit halocivil.com.
Is your business ready to amplify its voice? At Podwave Studios, we offer professional video podcast production services that help you connect with clients, build your brand, and grow your audience. From corporate messaging to thought leadership, we've got you covered. Book your session at podwavestudios.au today.
As the only executive search and leadership consulting firm to be admitted membership of the Minerals Council of Australia, Ivy & Gecko is uniquely resourced to advocate for the interests of our exploration, project development and mining clients.
Tell us about some of the key challenges of your current roles, Ian. So you're chairman of Jupiter Mines, a very good and producer of manganese in South Africa. You're on the board of Arafura Rare Earths, that's been in the news a lot for all the right reasons recently. What are some of the really big challenges that you've faced as a board director with those companies?
So I'm on 3 boards and they are diverse. So all 3 are different commodities and at different stages of their development. As you mentioned, Jupiter, that mine has been going for about 12 years. The mine life ahead of it is 100 years, so it's happy days. We pay dividends every 6 months. It's low operating costs, so the manganese price is very cyclical. But at the bottom of the cycle, if you can still make a margin, you are safe, which is where Jupiter is. The challenges there are we're operating in South Africa. A lot of Australian investors aren't comfortable with South Africa risk, so we've got to explain to them that 70% of manganese resources are in South Africa, about 40% of production comes from South Africa. If the world continues to need steel, it's going to need manganese. Therefore, it's going to need South African manganese. So
it's a bit like West Africa. Australian investors perceive a particular risk, don't they, of doing business in places like Ghana and Ivory Coast. But companies like Perseus have demonstrated that it can be a low-risk jurisdiction.
Yeah, I'd highlight that South Africa definitely isn't on the risk of West Africa. We've had a stable government since the election in 1995, 94. and so that is stable, but people have this perception about South Africa. The other thing is we're in a joint venture there, so one of the challenges is managing our joint venture and make a joint venture partner and making sure that we are both aligned. More recently, Exaro has announced they're buying out Insimbintla, who's our current joint venture partner. So we're going to have a new joint venture partner to build a relationship with. So that's that challenge. When we move across to Arafura and BlackRock, which is graphite in Tanzania, both of them are undeveloped projects. Very important commodities in the battery space and the electrification of robotics, etc. Both of them need to raise capital to fund their development. And that's a challenge at that side of the market is market timing. When do you raise capital so you don't, to minimize dilution on existing shareholders? How do you do it successfully? Because you only get one opportunity. You have to raise the money. You can't raise part of the money and then look to raise the balance later. The banks require you to raise all the money before they lend you the money that they have agreed to lend you. So that's the challenges of the pre-development projects.
As I talk to executives in the marketplace, many of them express an aspiration to become a director on a board. What are the risks and the rewards of being a company director of an ASX-listed business?
So the rewards for me are working with great people, great projects, and seeing a project or a company develop and grow. Seeing the benefit for the stakeholders that are involved with that company as well. When it comes to risks, it's very skewed because none of us non-executives are doing it for the money. The risks far outweigh any financial benefit we're getting. If you work it out on a pure hourly basis, it might as well be a consultant. You earn more than as a non-exec on a per hour basis. The loud, I always call it the loud minority, the retail shareholders on the chat sites, they are never happy with directors. So you're always being blamed for things by them. So that's a risk reward. But for me, it goes back to your purpose. If I'm involved in companies that are aligned with my personal purpose, then the rewards of being aligned and doing that, delivering that, far outweigh the risks that we carry as a director.
I think many people are attracted to it, perhaps those who are not currently on boards because of the perceived status of being a company director. I think so. I think there would be a proportion of people that are their motivation may not be appropriate for joining a company board.
No, I agree. It's you give a commitment. It's not just, some people think you only sit in board meetings once every quarter. It's more like once a month, and then you have the ad hoc meetings as well. You're getting phone calls from management just as a sounding board, all preparatory reading for the board meetings. And as an example, this weekend, we spoke about windsurfing earlier. I had to stop sailing early yesterday because I had a board meeting at 4:30 p.m. on a Sunday.
That was with Jupiter Mines?
I can't say with who.
Yeah. It's interesting, being a director and having responsibilities on a particular committee on the board is one thing. Being a chairman of a board is another thing. You've been there and done it. What makes an effective chairman? How should he or she manage the board dynamic to encourage the best contribution from each individual on that board?
So, David, the first time I became a director was for Gold Road in its previous name, Electro Mines, and that was 2007, so roughly 20 years ago.
It's an interesting name.
It was. That's why we changed it to Gold Road. Simple. What are we looking for? We're looking for gold. Yeah. But I'm still learning. 20 years later, I'm still learning as a chairman and as a non-executive. But to me, what's important is, as chairman, you've got to set the tone and the culture for the board. And that flows down, hopefully, into the organisation. We spoke about earlier about the different types of characters, some extroverts, some introverts. And if you let the natural thing happen in a board meeting, the people who like to talk will dominate and talk the whole time. And the quiet thinkers won't be encouraged to come out with their gems. And I always talk about the introverts coming out with gems because their brains process and then they talk. And when they talk, there are absolute gems of advice that come through. So as a chairman, you have to balance all the different skills around the room. You don't have clones in a boardroom. You've selected different skill sets, because as a team you make a complete unit. But individually, there are different skill sets, different personalities, all of that.
That's the importance of diversity, isn't it?
Yeah, diversity in backgrounds, education, gender, everything. But as chairman, it's your job to make sure that they all get a voice at the appropriate time, and creating the space for those deep thinkers to feel comfortable to come out with their comments.
I think diversity of point of view is more important than diversity of anything else. Very often people talk about having a balance of gender and ethnicity and race and so on, but no matter how a person might be packaged up, what we want is somebody who's got the confidence to be able to assert a particular point of view, hopefully that is well informed, and to challenge the status quo in a constructive way. And I think if we've got a group of people, male, female, white, black, whatever, that have that mix of points of view, then that's a good basis to form an effective team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I describe it differently. I just call it lenses. We want people around the room looking at things through different coloured lenses or different types of lenses, because you want that diversity of thought and input. But to get that, gender does help, because you get people that have ideally had different upbringings, different educations, different ways of doing business. I agree with you. It doesn't help to have diverse gender if they've all been trained up exactly the same way. Then you've got clones around the table, and you definitely don't want that.
And as you say, it's unless you are inclusive, there's no point having diversity. Whatever the group of people is, you need to encourage their contribution. You need to include them in the process of thinking and making decisions. One of the most important tasks, of course, of a chairman is selecting a new CEO. What factors do you consider, Ian, when you're selecting a CEO, and what are the all-important questions that you should be asking CEO candidates to try and work out whether they're a good fit for your company?
In answering that, different companies need different types of skill sets as their CEO, depending on what commodity it is, what cycle that commodity is in, and what stage of development the company's in. So putting all that into the mix, you then come up with what you think the right criteria are for your managing director or CEO. As I mentioned earlier, to me it's managing director and chief executive officer. So it's that leadership skill that you're trying to test. First filter will be, does this person have the right technical skills to get them into that next level of engagement? If once you tick that box, then it's, what is this person going to be like as a team leader, team builder, company grower? These people at that level will all be able to answer questions and do interviews very well. So it's more important speaking to people they've worked with before, people that they've reported to, and people that have reported to them, to understand what is their communication levels like, their communication ability. Do they only manage upwards and ignore people below them? Do they manage in both directions well? And also, do they pass on the bad news timeously? Because that's what you don't want, someone who sits on bad news and when the board hears it, it's too late. You want someone who's a good communicator, upwards, downwards, good team leader, and a good communicator.
And do they necessarily need to have been in an MD or a CEO capacity in the past?
No, they don't, because if that was a criteria, we'd run out of candidates. So no, just somebody who does show the potential. In South Africa, we used a tool. Don't know if you've come across it, Elliot Jark's levels of work, which is used quite a lot in the South African mining industry, and we use that to identify early potential leaders. So it takes, on the bottom scale, you've got time frames, and on the top is your maturity in levels of work. And so you can identify somebody at 30 that if they're in a certain area, you know that if with the right development and the right environment and mentoring, they will go from that level to a managing director, director by the time they're 50. And I found that tool very useful in South Africa for identifying the up and coming people who could be the next MDs.
Yeah. Without naming names, have you been on a dysfunctional board? And if so, what was the source of the dysfunction and what needed to happen for that board to become more effective?
David, unfortunately, there have been books written about this, so I can name names. So when I was in South Africa, before I became a director in the mining company I was involved, the chairman was a very strong personality, and his family owned a large percentage of the company, not the largest, but enough to have influence. And they had that in a number of mining companies in South Africa. But they also believed that these companies were their personal treasuries, and they were using cash across companies and for personal benefit, etc. A number of the UK-based funds appointed a director to come to South Africa to join these boards and to put a stop to this. So I was a young up-and-coming person. We had this chairman and this new director that shareholders had voted in at loggerheads.
What was your job in the company at the time?
I was looking after M&A, business development. With the cleanup that this guy from the UK brought about, I then became finance director or CFO in Australian terms. And so him and I worked together. He was executive chairman, I was CFO or finance director, the two executive directors on the board. We got rid of the previous CFO, previous managing director who were working in cahoots with this chairman. We eventually managed to get the chairman out of the structure. But even though he was out of the board, they still caused a lot of havoc in the background. They were politically connected. They tried to have this UK guy locked up on a Friday afternoon and thrown into a prison in one of the small little towns, and he wouldn't have survived until Monday when the lawyers would have tried to get hold of him. Luckily, he avoided that, but it was very, very messy. And so, as I mentioned, there have been books written about it. It ended in tears for the family involved that were using these other companies as their own treasury. One of the companies was actually Randgold Resources, which is now merged into Barrick. So they also had they had a shareholding there, and they were doing things into that company as well. So it took us about 4 years through the court process to actually clean it up.
And there were murders along the way, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. They weren't murders. The son of the chairman, he did get shot. It was ruled an assisted suicide.
Right.
If you can believe that.
Yeah, wow.
So it wasn't a murder, it was an assisted suicide. He paid somebody which does my head in. The father ended up suiciding himself. And unfortunately, this UK guy that I worked very closely with, he also suicided a few years later. So all three of them. Yeah, so it was a traumatic time. Yeah.
What a tragic tale. I mean, that level of corruption, was it widespread at the time in South Africa?
No, this was just this family that had aspirations. The son was incredibly clever. Thousands of ideas a day, but didn't know how to implement them. And when they got into, and they became very, very greedy. And when they're greedy, they just saw the treasury in these mining companies, and we can just tap into that.
As you reflect on your career, can you honestly say that you've had more fun as an executive or as a director?
So I was an executive from the year 2000 till I retired from Gold Road, I think 2018, 2019. So I've had close to 20 years as an exec. As a non-exec, it's now 5 or 6 years. So far more time as an executive. The Gold Road story was phenomenal. I worked with really good people. Ziggy Lubaniki, that you spoke about, geologists, and that maverick, the guys out there living in the country and making the discoveries. Ziggy was, and is, an absolute star to work with. Justin Osborne, who then joined us for the drill out of Gruyere, also great guys. So the Gold Road story was phenomenal. I had far more fun up to now as an executive, because you're part of the team, you're driving the team, building the team. As an executive, I'm enjoying it because I want to be involved in a number of companies and help mentor and guide the C-suite team as they develop. But you're not hands-on as you are as an executive.
You're 59 years of age, relatively young.
Yeah, debatable, yeah.
Do you ever do you rule out becoming an executive again?
Oh yeah, no, I crossed that bridge when I left Gold Road, I'd been executive for close to 20 years, and I wanted to move early into non-executive life, because I can have a long career as a non-executive. And just going back to my personal purpose, I want to help guide the next suite of C-suite people, and along the lines of making sure that we make a positive influence on the communities that we're operating in. So in Tanzania, BlackRock will make a huge difference for the community there. Arafura in Northern Territory, the same thing. And Jupiter, where the mine has been, the Chippy mine has been established, that has made a huge difference over the last 12 years.
On the theme of engaging people and obtaining social license to operate mines, it occurs to me that we still have somewhat of an image problem, the mining industry in Australia. There is a severe lack of professionals coming through the mining engineering and geological and metallurgical streams. There is a shortage of those people. Why are people not knocking on the doors of institutions to become a mining professional?
I think partly it's the FIFO work. The young generation want to live in the cities. They don't want to go and spend time remotely. Also think they don't understand what mining is. So recently I've read a book, I don't know if you, The Minerals, Material World, Ed Conway. Brilliant book. And he's a FT journalist that's written about, I think, 6 different commodities. But the knock-on impact of the largest volume commodities mined in the world, and everything we use, like the cup that we're drinking out of, there's sand in that. Where's that come? It comes from a mine. Our phones, the glass, your screen there, the heat resistance on that screen is graphite. You've got silicon in that. It all comes from mining. And I think that's the missing link with the up-and-coming generation, is they don't understand where all the product comes from. So I think for all school kids, they should read Ed Conway's book. It should be obligatory for them to read. I think the mining industry also needs to do things differently. How can we encourage these young people into the industry?
So it's an educational problem and a marketing problem.
Both, absolutely both, yeah. Marketing is crucial for the industry, education through the schooling systems. Make kids more aware of what are they consuming and where does it come from.
Yeah. Bodies like the WA Mining Club and the Minerals Council of Australia are doing some very good work these days, Ian, in terms of educating kids, getting school camps organised to go up and visit mines and process plants, so the kids can better understand what actually happens, and they can be reassured that the vast majority of the industry, conducts its mining on a very responsible and sustainable basis. To try and eradicate some of the myth that's out there that, miners are just bashing the environment and disrespecting Indigenous communities. So I think that marketing and that education needs to be stepped up even more. Yeah,
no, I agree. It's very important for the up and coming generations to understand that better. Things don't just appear on shop shelves. There's a step before that.
Indeed. It's a challenging business environment for proponents of projects to commit to investment. We know that labour and energy costs are very high in this country. FID conversion rates are low. The Fraser Institute survey came out a few months ago showing that WA is now the 17th most attractive jurisdiction for investment in the world. 2 years ago, I think we were number 1. So how do we reverse this trend to ensure that we've got the mines of the future?
So all the mines that we have today and the mines of the future were made through discoveries. Bottom line, you don't develop a mine without the ore body having been discovered. So we need to maximize the available cash that goes into exploration. And when you look at how the system is structured now, any listed company has to pay a certain amount each year for just being listed. Your stock exchange fees, your office rental, and your board of directors. So that's cash out without any holes going into the ground. Then you've got the whole land access process, it's a lengthy process and it's an expensive process just to get access to do work on the ground. So we need to work with AMEC and all the CME and all those other bodies and the state government and the federal government. How can we rationalize this. I've got no problem with paying money once you're up and operating a mine, because you've got cash flow to fund it. But when you're raising money from shareholders to do exploration, and the money doesn't get to exploration because it's spent on all these other non-value added areas, that's where the model is wrong.
Warren Pearce is working really hard, and Tanya Constable to achieve some of this stuff. But most people are legitimately concerned that we protect the environment, and so we should. It's not so much the green tape that frustrates people; it's the red tape. It's the office bureaucratic delays. If proponents of projects and investors who are looking at where to allocate their capital had more certainty sooner as to whether a project's going to get up or not, they could just move on. But it just seems that the delays of the regulators is really, and the survey result reflects it. It's really, casting doubt about the confidence of people to invest in this jurisdiction.
Yeah, we're certainly not attracting those investors with all the red tape and challenges that we have in Australia. Compared to where we were 20 years ago.
Ian, to wind up our conversation, here's some rapid-fire questions. Are you ready for these?
Sure, yeah.
If you could invite a much-admired leader, living or deceased, to your home for dinner, who would it be, and what would be the most important question you'd ask them?
So definitely, as a ex-South African, that would be Nelson Mandela. He was locked up on Robben Island for, I think, 25 years of his life, and he came out, and the first thing he did was, let's break down barriers, let's have a united South Africa. Yeah. There was no anger, full of peace, and under his leadership, South Africa flourished in those first few years. So, he would be the guy I'd invite around, and I'd just ask him, how did he change his mindset after being locked up for that long to be a person that was just open to creating peace, creating an environment where everybody could work together for the betterment of the country. It
is a remarkable story how somebody could endure that and not come out so revengeful and full of recrimination. You contrast Mandela, the leader, to someone like Trump, for example, who is just full of vitriol and revenge and recrimination for anybody that doesn't disagree with him.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's remarkable. So many people say Nelson Mandela. Who's the smartest person you've met?
Unfortunately, it's that guy I mentioned earlier, Brett Kebble, the son of Roger Kebble. Incredibly bright. He had so many ideas in his head. Unfortunately, it worked against him because the family got greedy. They went a step too far and ended up losing everything. So pure intelligence, but did it benefit him? No, it didn't.
Belief or ability, which comes first?
I think belief. With belief, you can always tap into and access ability.
What's a non-fiction book that you found very valuable?
I mentioned that Ed Conway book, Material World. He published it last year, so it's very new. And there he talks about 6 different commodities by volume, the 6 largest, and then the knock-on impacts. So you mine something in South America, gets processed in Europe, and then gets manufactured into a final product in China, as an example. And we are paying all that transport costs, etc. And just the volume and the knock-on impacts even though I've been in the mining industry since mid-1990s, it was a real eye-opener. Second one is a book called Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia.
Yes, I've read it.
Yes,
very
phenomenal book.
Big book.
Yeah, big book, but there's so much learning in that. We've probably read it a decade too late from when we should have read it. But just how to improve your life, keeping fit, keeping active, having your goals, that was really good. And then the other one and for me, a book has to grip me in the first few pages or so I lose interest, was Red Notice. Bill Browder, about Russia and Putin. And this probably came out 10, 15 years ago. All true story how this hedge fund manager from the US, ex-Russian descent, went to Russia, started up his fund and had everything stolen from him just by the system. People changed the corporate record so that his fund was owned by other people in the tax office.
What's the name of the book?
Red Notice.
Have to look for that one.
Yes.
Is that in bookshops at the moment, do you think?
Yeah, he's actually brought out a second book. Yeah. I might have mentioned the second one. Yeah, he's brought A Freezing Order and Red Notice are the 2 books. And it's ongoing. So he, through what happened to him, laws changed in the Western world, and that's where they ended up attaching oligarchs' assets.
If you were to write your own book, what would be the subject matter of it?
David, I know my limitations, and I'm not a writer, and therefore I would pass on that one.
That's what I said.
And you've written one. Okay, very good.
You learn as you go. What's the best business or career advice you've been given?
Yeah, in South Africa, the guy that recruited me into the mining space, he said, Ian, know what your number is, but when enough's enough, then you can get off the hamster wheel and do the things you enjoy. And I've always remembered that, and I've stuck with that. So I'm a non-exec now because I did very well out of Gold Road, and I can do what I enjoy now.
Yeah. Windsurfing.
And companies
and
involving
companies.
Yeah, and involving companies where I think they'll make a good difference.
Yeah. What are you most optimistic about?
Oh, I'm optimistic about the future of the human race. We've always been problem solvers. So we today see all the risks and everything around us and how we're ever going to overcome those. For thousands of years, the human race has faced changes and fears, and we've always overcome them. So there are a lot of bright young people out there, and I've got no doubt that they will solve the problems of tomorrow.
And what's the biggest of the risks that you think we're not paying enough attention to?
I think it's energy. I think we've got a serious energy crisis ahead of us. I'm all for renewable energy, clean energy, but you need to balance that with an economy. So, as I mentioned, I spent time in Europe, and I've seen the slow train crash that's happening there with their manufacturing industry. Australia is a few years behind. We need reliable source of power. We need an economic source of power. Once a country has that, we can then establish industry, manufacturing, etc., create employment, etc. If you think, well, we don't need manufacturing, well, then AI and data houses consume a hell of a lot of energy. And if the Western world is going to have expensive and unreliable power, all of that AI and data houses is going to go to China.
And should nuclear be in the mix as well with renewables?
Yeah, I think nuclear should be there. Unfortunately, I think Australia's 10 years too late for that. We should have been putting this in 10, 15, 20 years ago. And then we'd be benefiting from it today. There are those small, I think it was General Electric came up with those small modular.
Yeah.
I think that, imagine a mine site.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to transport diesel anymore. Yeah. You helicopter one of these units in, drop it down, you operate the mine for 10, 20, 30 years, you then pick it up and take it away and rehab it.
Energy's been a policy-free zone, really, in this country for over the last 10 years or so. We've made very little progress.
We've been very spoiled with the coal and the gas, but I think just switching or making gas unfavourable with the up-and-coming generation is not the right outcome for us for now. We need to have a transition into what the longer-term solution is.
What's one thing that you should start doing?
Reading more, and as I mentioned, a book's got to grip me. So I often get books, read them, and this is heavy going. I'm not encouraged to go back to it, so I'll stop reading. But I do need to read more. There's a hell of a lot you can learn from our histories.
What about podcasts? Do you listen to many?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, especially when driving. It's just such a convenient way.
You can multitask, can't you?
Yeah.
What's something that you should stop doing?
Going down the rabbit warren of social media.
Yeah.
Because you want the energy shot or the adrenaline shot, and you go on social media and you see something, and then you keep following it and you keep reading. Whereas read a book. It's been well written by a good author.
Yep.
It's fact checked.
And what energizes you the most?
I enjoy problem solving. As I mentioned, as a kid, maths, sciences I really enjoyed that. I really enjoy problem solving. The companies I've been involved in have been problem solving. The way I've run them has been a problem solving approach, and I get energized by problem solving.
And what drains you of energy?
The field you're in, Peter, when it comes to people issues, I'm happy to hand that over to people far more qualified than me and more patient than me to handle. I find dealing with people issues very draining.
If your home was on fire and you knew your family and your pets were safe, what valuable item would you dash to retrieve before you raced out of the building?
Yeah, family photographs. You can't replace those.
Final question. What advice would you give your 25-year-old self to help you lead a better quality life?
So better quality life, 25, would have been to move to Perth. I moved here when I was 40. And I haven't regretted the move, but I think if I'd moved here at 25, I would have had extra 15 years here. This is the best place in the world. It's just quality of life here, the people here, everything is wonderful.
Better than Germany?
Depends where this podcast goes. No, definitely summer here is wonderful. Winter's a bit cold and wet. But summers here are wonderful.
Ian, thanks very much for being our guest. You've been transparent with us. We appreciate it. And good luck to you as you continue your good governance of the boards you're on. And we look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure on the podcast with you.
Thank you. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Hearts and Minds. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a rating or share it with a friend. And don't forget to follow us and connect on social media for updates on all of our upcoming guests. I'm Alana Bray-White, and I look forward to you joining us for our next episode.